All right, welcome to Fanatics Football, the football segment of the Fantasy Fanatics Podcast. I'm your host once again, James, and I'm joined once again by Nate. What's up, man?
So,
All right, in today's episode, we're going to take a look at some of the small moves from around the NFL in terms of free agents. We'll look at a couple of signings, one trade, and then we'll just move into talking some fantasy. We'll go through each NFL team's offensive lineup and I guess see which fantasy position maybe could be addressed either in the draft or maybe in the signing or trade of a player. So, yeah, let's just hop right into it. We'll start with the signings first. The first one is Stefon Diggs. He agrees to a $96 million extension with the Buffalo Bills. I believe it's a 4-year deal, so he's getting paid big money. Obviously, he had a huge breakout season in the 2020 season, and then he had a bit of a step back in the 2021 season. Still a very great season overall. I think he still even had 1,200 yards in that down year and over 100 catches. So nothing to sneeze at for Stefon Diggs. I guess, what are your thoughts on this huge deal? I mean, he seems like he's happy in Buffalo.
yeah, I mean, it's great for Buffalo, obviously, because they've been a pretty successful playoff team so far. They most likely want to make it to the Super Bowl at least, I think, this season. So I think Stefon Diggs is definitely going to help the chances for that.
Yeah, especially with guys like Cole Beasley and Emmanuel Sanders not returning. You definitely don't want to be losing another receiver. So they do a good job locking him up for the next 4 years, barring any trade or anything like that. So it looks like he should be really solid. He should probably have around similar yards to his first 2 seasons in Buffalo, somewhere over 1,000 yards for sure, around 100 catches, and probably around 10 touchdowns as well, if not more than that. So he's definitely going to be really solid. I mean, definitely a great signing. Obviously, the money's high, but for his production, I think that he can pretty much hold to that value. And then, yeah, speaking of the AFC East division, the Patriots made a couple moves as well. The first one is them trading for Miami Dolphins wide receiver Devante Parker. They sent a third-round pick in 2023 to Miami for Devante Parker and a 2022 fifth-round pick. So, yeah, I mean, I guess give me your thoughts on this trade.
Well, I guess they're thinking, even though Devontae Parker is a good wide receiver, they can maybe trade wide receiver like Devontae Parker for some, I guess, some picks. So they're hoping that some picks in the draft would somehow be able to kind of make up for what they traded away Devontae Parker.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that, with the trade for Tyreek Hill, you got Jalen Waddle there. I think they signed Cedric Wilson. Yeah, I mean, the receiver room is just really crowded. Apparently, he wanted to be traded and he actually wanted to go to the Patriots. So they pretty much had no choice but to accommodate him at that point. So Miami pretty much got as much as they could get. Definitely think the Patriots got the better end of the deal because they had most of the leverage. They had a player that wanted to come play for them. So I feel like they could have had to give out more. But yeah, he's a really solid receiver. I know he's been injured a few years into his, I believe, seventh season, which was last year. But yeah, he was very productive in the 2019 season. I think he was fifth in the NFL in receiving yards that year. So really solid. Definitely like a top wide receiver in terms of contested catches. He's definitely really solid in that sense. So definitely the deep ball threat that Mac Jones is looking for in New England. And he should be able to complement slot receiver Jacoby Myers and a couple of the other guys there, as well as a big time tight end they have in Hunter Henry. So, yeah, definitely an improvement to this Patriots offense. And I definitely think it's a pretty solid trade for what the Patriots had to give up, which wasn't too much. And then the Patriots also signed defensive back Jabrill Peppers. Yeah, he signed a 1-year deal worth around $5 million. He spent the last 3 years with the New York Giants. I believe he was a part of that Odell Beckham trade where Beckham went to the Browns and Peppers went to the Giants. Yeah, I guess give me your thoughts. Former Cleveland Browns defensive back. I believe he actually plays safety. Yeah, what are your thoughts on the Patriots signing him?
I mean, he's a safety, so he kind of gives a lot of protection against like deep ball threats, and that's probably most likely what they wanted to bring him in.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I know he was banged up last year. He didn't play a lot. It looks like the Patriots didn't have to pay much for his services, considering he just came off of an injury, considering he had a down year for the most part. But we've seen what the Patriots have done with defensive players in that sense. Like, look at what they did with Jalen Mills last year. He was sort of on the downtrend with the Eagles. He comes to New England. He played pretty solid last year. So that's just one example of a guy that really thrived in the Patriots defensive system. I definitely think Jabrill Peppers can sort of realize some of that potential that he had in Cleveland originally. So, yeah, definitely a low key signing. We know the Patriots don't overspend on in free agency, except for last season. But for the most part, they're to try and be more low key. So definitely a low key signing that could end up paying off pretty handsomely for them this year. And yeah, that's pretty much most of the free agency coverage for the week. Not too much noise going around the NFL. So we'll move right into our fantasy portion of the podcast. Let's hop into some of these offensive depth charts for teams. We'll probably go in alphabetical order just to make things easier. We'll talk about maybe some needs for each team heading into the draft, maybe some free agents they can sign if they don't get someone to fill those offensive positions. So we'll start with the Arizona Cardinals. Um, I guess going through their depth chart, I guess any of their offensive positions that maybe could use addressing.
I think they're pretty good for their offensive depth in general. I feel like defense is a higher priority for them, but they could maybe get another running back to kind of complement James Conner.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. I feel like defense is more of a priority for this team, considering they did trade Chandler Jones. And of course, their front defensive line is getting older. But yeah, in terms of offense, I think, yeah, acquiring Zach Ertz last year, really solid. James Conner, they re signed him, obviously pretty solid. Yeah, maybe another wide receiver since AJ Green doesn't look like he's going to return. Maybe throw another guy into that wide receiver room. Maybe another running back to complement Connor, like you said. Yeah, I definitely think that that's the direction they should be able to go. We'll get to the Falcons now. I guess give me your thoughts on, I guess, guys they could potentially get in the draft or in free agency.
There's a few guys. I'm guessing they could draft maybe a quarterback later in the draft, like a rookie quarterback, and try to develop him behind Marcus Mariota. They could draft some linemen. They could go for some wide receivers. They could go for defense. There's actually quite a bit that the Falcons can do.
Yeah, I was gonna say outside of tight end, they pretty much need every other position, especially like because Kyle Pitts, they took him last year. He's gonna be solid for the next 5 to 10 years, I think. So I mean, yeah, wide out, it's really shallow for them. They definitely need some quarterback they could take, like you said. I know they did bring back Cordero Patterson, who was probably gonna play running back. So I mean, they could still draft one because Mike Davis sort of been up and down for them last year. Defense is getting better, but yeah, I definitely agree. Maybe take another guy and see what happens there to keep improving. So yeah, Atlanta definitely a lot of work to do. I'll definitely agree with that. We get to Baltimore now. I guess give me your thoughts on some potential players they could draft.
It's a little bit hard to say because of the the way the offense works. It's a run heavy team, and they're already pretty good with their running. You'd think maybe they could get a wide receiver, but it kind of depends on how many targets the wide receivers are getting. So maybe they could get a tight end, but it would most likely be a blocking tight end.
Yeah, honestly, I have to agree with you. A quarterback that seemed to be okay with Lamar Jackson. Got J.K. Dobbins, Gus Edwards at running back, and I think they were even uh, talking to Melvin Gordon with the potential of him coming in as well. So they should be okay there. I think I agree with you. Wide receiver might be the spot where they could draft someone. Rashad Bateman should develop into a top guy. Marquise Hollywood Brown's very decent as well. Devin Duvernay, I mean, he's been all right. He's more of a special teams guy in my eyes. So yeah, maybe a wide receiver might be really solid for them. We'll get to the Buffalo Bills. I guess give me your thoughts on a player they could draft.
They're, I guess, considering some of their other wide receivers left, maybe getting some more wide receivers that can kind of complement Stefon Diggs would probably be the best, just so that teams don't double team and triple team and stuff like that. So yeah, I feel like that might be the way to go.
Yeah, I was gonna say a wide receiver, maybe a running back, considering Zach Moss really hasn't panned out the way they would have liked him to. Uh, I mean, they did sign Duke Johnson, but I really don't see him as that next guy. So, yeah, they could probably take a pick at either wide receiver or at running back. Getting to Carolina now. Um, I mean, quarterback might be the obvious pick, but I guess any other spots that they could maybe look at.
Other than quarterback, it's a little bit hard to say. Um, I feel like the Panthers should probably go for lineman first, mainly because they already have a really good running back in Christian McCaffrey, just that he's been getting injured. So maybe you can draft another running back to kind of complement him. Um, Wide receiver, maybe you could go for a wide receiver, but I feel like linemen are probably the most important for them.
Yeah, I know. I'd have to agree with you there. If you take a quarterback in the first round, then you missed out on maybe a top offensive lineman. So I really struggle to see them taking a quarterback that early. I believe they have like the sixth pick or something. An offensive lineman is definitely the way to go. And then, yeah, maybe adding at wide receiver, maybe a tight end, maybe a late round quarterback. Maybe they trade up for one. There is a lot of holes on this team, so hopefully they can get them filled. I'll move to the Chicago Bears now. They got their quarterback last year in Justin Fields. He should be able to start this season, but I guess what other positions do you think they should be drafting?
Um, I guess they'll probably be trying to draft some players that can kind of um, that they can develop alongside Justin Fields. So I'm guessing they might end up drafting some wide receivers next.
Yeah, I was gonna say wide receiver should be that spot. Darnell Mooney, probably their best wide receiver. He definitely needs a second option. Pringle, they'll probably bring him out of the slot, so they definitely need that number two option for sure. Running back, they drafted Khalil Herbert last year to complement Montgomery, so I think that's really solid. And at tight end, Cole Kmet's looking really solid. So yeah, wide receiver seems to be that offensive position that they do need to address. We'll get to the Bengals now. They addressed two big positions on the offense last year with Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase, but I guess any other positions that maybe they could address.
I feel like this is another team that the most important position I feel like is lineman, because Joe Burrow was taking a lot of sacks during the playoffs, and the year before that he ended up getting injured because of taking too many sacks. So that's probably the highest priority for them.
Yeah, I definitely agree. They did add a couple pieces in the offseason, Alex Kappa and Lale Collins, but definitely want to bring in that young talent on the line. Definitely agree with that. Maybe even take a look at drafting a tight end since they lost CJ Uzama. And I don't know if Hayden Hurst is going to be at that level to replace him. Oh, we'll get now to the Cleveland Browns. I'll just hand it right over to you, I guess. What are your thoughts on this team's offense heading into the draft?
I feel like overall I kind of like the offense for the most part. Maybe there's a few guys that you can draft in terms of depth, but for the most part, I think they addressed a lot of parts already.
Yeah, I mean, you just look at every position. You got Watson at quarterback, Chubb, Hunt, and Dearness Johnson are at running back. You got Amari Cooper, Donovan Peoples-Jones, Anthony Schwartz. They even have Jakeem Grant there in the special teams. He can also play wideout. Yeah, you got Njoku and Harrison Bryant at tight end, a really solid offensive line. So as far as fantasy goes, this is a great team to look at potentially for this coming season, for players that are going to be generating fantasy points. Um, yeah, honestly, maybe address the defense, maybe address the depth. I definitely agree with you on that. I will move to Dallas now. Um, I guess maybe a few holes here. I guess what are your thoughts on Dallas?
Um, I'm not really too sure, honestly, but um, I don't know. Maybe they could go for some tight ends.
Yeah, I guess looking at this team, quarterback, running back should be all right. Maybe a wide receiver, considering they did lose Amari Cooper. That maybe could be where Dallas looks. Maybe another tight end to complement Dalton Schultz. Since I believe their other tight end left, his name is just slipping my mind at the moment. Um, yeah, definitely another tight end. Maybe someone on the defense as well. Offensive line's also getting up there in age, so maybe take a look at that. We'll get now to the Denver Broncos. Of course, they trade for Russell Wilson, so quarterback is not going to be a question for them for the most part. I guess any other positions maybe they could address.
Um, I kind of like who they have. Maybe they could get some more wide receivers. They could get some tight ends as well. Um, they could go for running back. They could go for alignment as well.
Yeah, honestly, they traded Noah Fant, so I mean they have Albert O there at tight end, but yeah, maybe some more depth there. Wide receivers, maybe give it a year, look and see what they have in terms of their talent, and then maybe go from there. Maybe next year they might need to draft or sign someone. In terms of running back, maybe a backup for Javonte Williams since it looks like Melvin Gordon's not returning. Yeah, just maybe add a piece here and there, and their offense will definitely be really solid. We'll get to the Lions now. Um, yeah, this is a offense that's rebuilding. I guess maybe what are some pieces they could look at?
It looks like they do have some talent here. I think they got DJ Chark and Amon-Ra St. Brown. So those are two wide receivers that they have already. They could go for an additional one. They could go for some linemen as well. I know they do have Penny Sewell, but I guess you could always go with more linemen.
Yeah, I definitely agree. They do have some solid pieces there. TJ Hawkinson, fantastic tight end. You got the receivers that you mentioned. They even brought back Khalif Raymond and Josh Reynolds, pretty solid. Got DeAndre Swift and Jamal Williams in the backfield. I don't know. Maybe do they take a quarterback? I don't know. Is that the time? Do they sort of move past Jared Goff? I don't know. Maybe draft a guy to sit behind Jared Goff. I'm not sure. I mean, that's always an option for them, or they could just look to add on defense, which is what they're probably going to do in the first round. So, yeah, definitely made their team more solid already, and we'll see which way the Lions go. We'll get to the Green Bay Packers. I think it's pretty obvious at this point that they need to add at wide receiver, but what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, Aaron Rodgers has been saying that he needs more help. Obviously, this is supposed to be a team with really good passing because Aaron Rodgers is on the team. So wide receiver is probably the way to go.
Yeah, in my opinion, Alan Lazard, Randall Cobb, and Amari Rogers isn't going to cut it. So I feel like they definitely need to add one more name there, whether it's via free agency with a guy like Julio Jones or others, and then maybe even it's in the draft. Some of the top names there, whether it's a Garrett Wilson or whoever else is there in the draft, we'll definitely have to see what the Packers do there. We'll get to the Texans now. Um, it looks like I don't know. I believe Brandon Cooks is a free agent. Maybe he's still with the team. I'm not 100% sure. Um, I mean, he's their best offensive option right now, whether he's going to be there or not. They did sign running back Marlon Mack. But I guess give me your thoughts on Houston's offense going forward.
I feel like going forward, there's probably a lot of places that they'd like to kind of reinforce. So I feel like they should probably start with the line first, and that'll probably make things a lot easier to figure out.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like Davis Mills is a great placeholder quarterback, maybe even develops into a good starting quarterback for them. Marlon Mack will definitely be good enough to hold the fort there at running back, and then maybe they can address wide receiver for sure. Maybe a guy to sort of accompany Nico Collins in his young career. Tight end, Brevin Jordan, they drafted him. They added Farrell Brown. So they're decent there. But yeah, definitely a lot of pieces to add for sure. We'll get to the Indianapolis Colts. Obviously, their big acquisition was getting Matt Ryan as their quarterback. Obviously, they have Jonathan Taylor at running back. But I guess what are your thoughts on the rest of the offense?
I feel like for the rest of the offense, because Matt Ryan also likes to sling the ball a lot, you're probably going to want to draft some a wide receiver to try to complement that.
Yeah, I definitely think wide receiver is a position they need to address, maybe a bit on the line as well. I guess potentially maybe a tight end. I know they did bring back Moali Cox, but yeah, we'll definitely see what the Colts can do. They definitely need some offensive pieces for sure. Considering T.Y. Hilton hasn't re-signed back with them, so definitely be interesting to see. We'll get to Jacksonville now. They have their quarterback in Trevor Lawrence now, but I guess what other pieces do you think they should add?
Well, I think they lost DJ Chark, so they could go for wide receiver. I think they're pretty good at running back already. They could go for a tight end, but I feel like maybe either a wide receiver or lineman.
Yeah, definitely. I know they added Christian Kirk. He's their main guy at wide receiver. They added Marvin Jones last year. They have Zay Jones, LaVisca Chenault. But yeah, I feel like they're still missing that big name. Maybe Christian Kirk does develop into that guy. They signed Evan Ingram at tight end. They have Dan Arnold. They have James Robinson and Travis Etienne at running back. Honestly, offensive line is probably where I'm at. I know they're probably going to draft defense in the first round. But yeah, keep adding to that offensive line. That's definitely a must for Jacksonville, in my opinion. We'll get to the Kansas City Chiefs. They lose Tyreek Hill, which is a big loss. So I assume that they're probably going to be looking at wide receiver in the draft.
Possibly. I mean, um, they have Juju Smith-Schuster, they have Marcus Valdez-Scantling, but in terms of like a big name wide receiver, they don't really have that yet. Well, I mean, yeah, they don't not like a big enough name to replace Tyreek Hill, so they probably would look at a wide receiver.
Yeah, I think they're definitely in a similar situation to Green Bay. So I think maybe they do look at a wide receiver early on. And then we'll get to the LA Chargers. I think this offense looks great. I don't know. What are your thoughts? Maybe where could they add?
I mean, this is already a really good offense. Um, they could add some depth pieces, but for the most part, I kind of like this offense. Maybe improve the line a little bit, but um, pretty much the Chargers already did most of the work.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, they brought back Mike Williams. Obviously, they have Keenan Allen, Josh Palmer wide out. Their offensive line, they addressed it really well last year with Rashawn Slater, Corey Linsley. Yeah, they have Justin Herbert at quarterback, Austin Eckler at running back, maybe a solid backup running back since Joshua Kelly hasn't looked amazing and we really haven't seen much from Larry Roundtree yet. So, yeah, maybe a backup running back, maybe a tight end. Maybe those could be some options, and then maybe they just add some more depth on the defense or something like that. But yeah, the Chargers look really good to go. We'll get to the Rams, defending champions. I guess give me your thoughts on their offense.
I mean, their offense is pretty stacked already, so there's not really too many places that you could probably add to that. Maybe you could just, I guess, go for more depth at the line.
Yeah, honestly, offensive line. Obviously, we know that Whitworth retired. So yeah, maybe they could get some depth there. Honestly, other than that, yeah, they seem to be pretty solid overall. They got their wideouts in Allen Robinson coming in free agency to pair up with Cooper Kupp. And then they have Higbee as a tight end, Stafford as a quarterback, Cam Akers and Darrell Henderson as their running back. So yeah, pretty solid overall. Maybe they touch up on the defense a little bit too. We'll get to the Las Vegas Raiders. Devante Adams was their big ad, but I guess what other moves could maybe they make this offseason?
if they didn't get Devante Adams, I probably would have said they should get a wide receiver, but I feel like they already have that in Devante Adams. So maybe I feel like defense would probably be the most important.
Yeah, I think defense might be the spot. I definitely agree with you there. Their offense looks really solid. So yeah, I think Vegas should focus on adding solid pieces for their defense. We'll get to Miami. Obviously, they had Tyreek Hill. Their offense looks great. I guess maybe what are your thoughts on maybe a place they could add?
They could go for running back maybe to kind of complement who they already have, but it looks like they already have a lot of running backs. So um, maybe some more linemen or maybe some defense.
Yeah, definitely maybe add to the offensive line. I think they're pretty much solid in every other offensive area at the moment. They added Teddy Bridgewater to back up Tua. So if anything happens with Tua, I definitely think that they have a decent guy that can hop in to be the starter. So yeah, Miami's looking pretty solid as we speak. We'll get to Minnesota now. Um, I guess give me your thoughts on their offense, maybe where they should add.
It's a little bit tough to tell because they're kind of similar to Cleveland in the sense that they use their run to kind of open up passing. So they'll normally try to run first with either Dalvin Cook or Alexander Madison. So I don't think they need any running backs outside of Dalvin Cook or Alexander Madison. They could maybe go for wide receiver, but they already have some pretty good wide receivers. Um, maybe some line, maybe some defense.
Yeah, I definitely think offensive line would be a solid place for them to start. Maybe another tight end as well. For the most part, their offense seems pretty good. Yeah, maybe they can add on defense as well. But yeah, I definitely like the direction the Vikings are headed. We'll get to the New England Patriots now. They add Devante Parker, obviously, on their offense, but I guess where else do you think maybe they could add?
Um, I guess taking a look at it, um, they could get another running back to kind of complement their Damian Harris. They could go for some more linemen. They're pretty good at tight ends already, I think. So I guess maybe um, another running back.
Yeah, I definitely think that offensive line is probably where they could get more depth, even though they did get better last year. I think maybe another wide receiver, running back if they want, but I think bringing back James White, they might be okay. Obviously, they're great with Mac Jones at quarterback. They have Hunter Henry and John Smith at tight end. So, yeah, for the most part, this offense is getting better. Maybe a couple pieces here and there, definitely be pretty solid. I'll get to the Saints now. I guess give me your thoughts on their offense.
I feel like there's some stuff that they could do, but there's already some stuff that they did really well. I think obviously keeping Taysom Hill was a good choice. They do have Adam Troutman. They have Jameis Winston, who I think he is a little bit underrated. I know he's really streaky as a passer, but he's still solid. Um, you could go for some wide receivers, maybe.
Yeah, I definitely agree there. Go for some wide receivers. There's no guarantee Michael Thomas is going to stay. So, yeah, you might as well go for someone there. Maybe you take a quarterback. I don't know where they're at with Jameis Winston, how much faith they have in him, but yeah, I think that there is a good chance that they might draft a quarterback. Um, I mean, there's wide receivers on the market. Maybe they could address one from there, or they could take one in the draft. And then we'll get to the next team here, the New York Giants. Just looking at their offense, I think tight end stands out to me, but I guess what position do you think they should address?
I guess other than tight end, I feel like um, the linemen might be the most important, maybe because it seems like the offense as a whole doesn't really seem to be clicking. So it's kind of hard to see like what specifically. So I guess if you start with linemen first, you can kind of work your way.
Yeah, I think you're right. Offensive line has been what's holding them back. all this time. And yeah, I definitely think that's probably a great place for them to start. Maybe add a tight end as well. Maybe give Daniel Jones a chance to, have a good offense, and we'll definitely see how he performs. We'll get to the Jets now. Their offense is starting to fall into place, I guess. What are your thoughts on that?
Their offense is starting to look pretty good. Um, I guess not really too sure what they could do. They got CJ Uzoma, so that's really good. Um, so I don't think they need a tight end. They do have some decent wide receivers, but maybe they could add one more. But I feel like this is another team that maybe they could go with either a running back or a lineman.
Yeah, I'd probably agree with you there. Maybe another running back, maybe an offensive lineman, maybe wide receiver. Maybe they could add in a few different places. I know they have a lot of draft picks. So definitely looking at, I guess, some of the players that they could add. Definitely be interesting when we get to the draft. We'll get to the Philadelphia Eagles now. I think wide receiver is probably the most obvious spot, maybe on the offensive line, but I guess what are your thoughts?
Um, I feel like wide receiver, like either a wide receiver or lineman might be the most important considering I feel like they don't really have like a big name wide receiver. They can just throw the ball and he's just gonna catch it. So yeah, I guess maybe wide receiver.
All right. And then getting to the Pittsburgh Steelers, maybe they draft a quarterback. I don't know. What are your thoughts on this offense?
I mean, I feel like um, Mitchell Trubisky might just be kind of he's a decent starting quarterback, but I feel like if they want to go all the way, they should probably um, draft kind of a rookie quarterback to sit behind um, Mitchell Trubisky. They could go with linemen as well because I feel like last season they didn't address their offensive linemen enough, and I feel like that's also as important.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Their offensive line, it's been kind of shaky. Definitely could add there. Maybe another wideout to complement Deontay Johnson and Chase Claypool. I think tight end and running back they addressed last year, so they should be good there. And then maybe a quarterback. We'll definitely have to see how that shakes out. Getting to the Seahawks now, no Russell Wilson. Maybe they acquire a quarterback, but I really think their offensive line needs a lot of work.
Yeah, I kind of like they could go for a quarterback, but at the same time, um, Russell Wilson was scrambling a lot, and he is a good scrambler. But at the same time, I feel like the offensive line what kind of contributed to the reason why he was scrambling so much. So you should probably get an offensive line because there's not too many quarterbacks out there who can scramble like Wilson can.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Drew Lock's definitely going to be under siege if he ends up being the starting quarterback. Maybe they acquire one. But yeah, that may be a tight end, but I think having Noah Fant might be good enough. So yeah, maybe quarterback or offensive line for sure. We'll get to the 49ers here. They have Jimmy Garoppolo and Trey Lance at quarterback. We'll see who ends up starting. Honestly, for the most part, their positions look really strong on offense. Maybe they address a bit on defense, but I guess what are your thoughts?
Maybe they could go for a running back. I guess that's the only position that I'm thinking.
Yeah, maybe just add to the depth because I think Eli Mitchell was really good last year. I don't know if they want to, draft someone to take over a spot. I mean, they do have Jeff Wilson, Hasty, and Trey Sermon. So, I mean, they do have guys there. So, yeah, we'll definitely see where they address. We'll get to Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Tom Brady's back. Obviously, they bring Evans and Godwin back. Um, yeah, pretty much this whole team is good to go. If Gronk doesn't come back, maybe they draft a tight end. But I guess other than that, this offense looks pretty great.
Yeah, I feel like they're more or less complete as an offense. They're just missing a tight end on the level of Rob Gronkowski, and that's pretty much it. Either a tight end or some lineman.
Yeah, maybe a lineman because I think they did lose a couple. So maybe just adding to that depth would be pretty solid as well. I'll get to the Tennessee Titans now. They acquired Robert Woods at wide receiver. I think maybe you address tight end if they don't believe in Austin Hooper, but I think he is pretty solid. I think maybe just the offensive line, considering it was pretty bad at points last season.
Yeah, I feel like that's probably what they're going to do because this is already kind of a run, another run first offense. So that you probably don't need to draft another wide receiver considering you already have Robert Woods, you already have AJ Brown. So probably another tight end who can, I guess, block as well or line.
For sure. And then getting to the Washington Commanders, they addressed their quarterback situation with Carson Wentz. Maybe they still draft a quarterback. We'll have to see. They have good running backs. They have a good tight end, Logan Thomas. I think maybe wide receivers where they address maybe to complement Terry McLaurin. I guess, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I feel like wide receiver might be kind of the best spot to draft them.
For sure. And then getting to we're at the end. I thought there was another team. Washington was the last team. So yeah, we pushed through it. We got through all of the teams. A lot of things for these teams to address. I guess maybe give me some last thoughts either on a team, what they need to address, maybe on some of the signings that happened. I guess just any thoughts on the NFL in general.
I guess just in general, I feel like um, there's some positions that I feel like could be sleeper positions, if that makes sense. For example, Mac Jones. I feel like the offense is improved to a point where you might be able to kind of take him, depending on the league that you're in. You could take him as maybe, I guess, a late quarterback one if there's like no one else available. If that makes sense.
Yeah, like a deep league quarterback one, definitely a solid backup, most likely. If his weapons are better, he's going to produce at a better rate. Could be a breakout candidate. So definitely, yeah, I agree. Maybe a guy that you could look at. Yeah, a lot of these young quarterbacks, draft them as the backup. Potentially they break out. So definitely something to look at. And then look at some of these wide receivers coming in from the draft, depending on their landing spots, they're going to be getting opportunities and they could break out. Like look what happened with Jamar Chase this year. He looked really solid. There were other young, solid receivers. Amon-Ra St. Brown comes to my mind as well. So definitely a lot of these young guys, if you can get a hold of them late in your drafts, that's definitely a must add for sure. And then, yeah, that's going to be the end of this Fanatics football episode. Just make sure you check us out on Instagram and Twitter at FanFan Podcast. We'll be posting picks for NBA and NHL. Definitely go check those out. And then as for the podcast, we're on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Google Podcasts. Just make sure you like, subscribe, share, hit the bell for notifications on YouTube, leave comments, reviews, all that good stuff. And yeah, definitely been a wild off season. It's calmed down a little bit, but we're definitely headed towards the draft. So we'll have to see how that shakes out. And then, yeah, we'll talk to you guys on the next episode.